and welcome to your Right to Know by the Fitchburg Republican City Committee. My name is Mary Lotze, and I will be your co-host for this evening's show. Joining me in my regular co-hosting duties is my friend and patriot on our show, Attorney Andrew Couture. Hi, Andrew.
How you doing today, Mary?
Oh, hey, we look a little like the Hollywood Squares, don't we?
We do. It's almost like the Brady Bunch.
Yes, that's what it is. So joining us as the Brady Bunch is going to be another friend of ours, and it's Attorney Stephanie Fattman. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
And many of you may recognize the name. Stephanie is the Worcester County Registrar of Probate. Now, Stephanie joined us, 2014, when you first ran for this position, you were on our show. And at that time, you won a wonderful election. And you were very successful in doing many things. So these are the kind of things we want to explore tonight when we talk about your run and your, again, office candidacy for the November election. But I want to ask a question, and I'm opening up the show tonight because as the only non-attorney sitting here tonight, I really don't know what a registrar of probate does and what the duties are. So for myself, and for our viewers, I would love for you to educate us in that question, Stephanie.
Sure. Well, thank you both for having me. It's great to be here with you. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to digging into this position a little bit more tonight. I ran in 2014 for Registrar of Probate. It's a little known position in the judiciary, and the role is to be the executive of the Probate and Family Court for Worcester County. In my position, I oversee an office of about 35 staff where we organize and get all of the casework ready for the judges in the probate and family court. So we have jurisdiction over matters such as divorce and child custody, child support, those type of matters. We probate estates for loved ones who have passed away. And my role is to help compile and organize all of the files and documents across Worcester County. So we have 60 cities and towns that are represented in our court. We have about 800,000 case files that come through our court. And my responsibility is to keep them all organized and ready to go, to get them ready to go before judges.
So this is really a big job that definitely does impact the lives really of many of us, whether we have children and we have family crisis issues or we have loved ones who have passed away. You really impact your office, and the probate court does impact everyone.
Absolutely. Believe it or not, almost everybody's going to come through the probate and family court at some point in their lives. Like I'd mentioned, whether it's divorce or child custody or probating the estate of a loved one who's passed away, we are likely to see you in the probate and family court. And so when I ran in 2014, I ran with the goal in mind of making the court more accessible to the public. As you mentioned, you're not an attorney and therefore not familiar with the position. And we wanted to make the court more comfortable, more approachable, easier for people to come in, to see a face with the name and recognize us at the counter, have their questions answered. Really an office where we are public servants. We are serving the public. We are here to help. And that was our goal in 2014. Luckily, 6 years later, I'm happy to say we've easily accomplished that.
Well, that's wonderful. Andrew, I know you have many questions being an attorney and working with Stephanie routinely.
Stephanie, first of all, I have to say that you have done a phenomenal job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I mean, I'm in and out of the court systems. It's your court, the Worcester Probate and Family Court, that has been pushing to open, get things moving, get things done. You have done a phenomenal job. And, but my question to you is, well, back in 2014, when you first took on this job, which was not an easy undertaking because it has been, mismanaged for quite some time. You had some expectations about what you wanted to do for the registry. What did you find back in 2014 that challenged you?
Well, I sincerely appreciate your kind words. We've worked very hard over the last 6 years, and we're continuing to work hard through this crisis right now. So I appreciate that you're seeing some of the fruit of those efforts. And I think that it's really been a work in progress for the past 6 years. When I started, I campaigned on bringing strong management to government. As you mentioned, it was an office that was just mismanaged. Money was missing, people weren't showing up to work. And so we created a new culture. We set out to create the new culture and new expectations, working with the staff to really lay out what is expected of them in this role as public service. And we've been able to really accomplish bringing the office more to the people. And so with that, we've been able to do things like reduce filing times. What used to take 3 to 4 weeks to have a case filed now takes 24 to 48 hours. We've tried to go more digital, be accessible online, creating a website, creating a general email inquiry box, creating a general voicemail box, just easy ways for the public and attorneys to reach out to us and get access to us to have their questions answered. And so those were the things I set out to accomplish, and those have been the biggest challenges we've taken on in the past 6 years, because it takes time to make change in an office like this. It takes time to change a culture and create new guidelines and a new way about going and doing things that people hadn't necessarily expected, and thinking outside of the box and implementing change. But we've just set our goals in mind, and we've focused towards them, and we've been able to accomplish that and then some.
You know, as an attorney who's in and out of the probate and family court numerous times, I will have to say, and I've been to Middlesex, I've been to Essex, I've been to Norfolk, I've been all the way to the Berkshire, but Worcester, in my opinion, is the best run.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate that as well. I think we have a lot of staff that very much cares about their jobs. And so we, as I mentioned, work with about 35 staff in the Worcester Probate and Family Court. And one of the major roles I've had in the past 6 years is to bring in staff that's passionate about helping people and serving the public. And we've probably we've had quite a lot of turnover. We've worked very hard to receive funding from the legislature and create more positions. We've almost doubled our positions since I've started, as far as turning people over and then bringing in new bodies. And so that's been very important to us to create, as I mentioned, this culture of wanting to serve the public. And then we've tried to use the bodies that we do have and use them more efficiently. As you mentioned, you come into our court and we have a unique line in Worcester that other courts don't have that services just attorneys. We've worked hard over the last 6 years to figure out how do we service attorneys even better in that line. And so we've created something called real-time docketing, where you come in and you come to us right at the front counter, and we essentially enter all your paperwork right into the file while you're standing right there waiting for it. And so that's something unique that had never been done before in any of the courts, especially not in Worcester. And so we're really thinking outside of the box, like I'd mentioned, to come up with unique solutions like that to make the office run more efficiently.
And I also have to say that your staffing is phenomenal. Your probation officers,
Yeah.
they can, I mean, instead of wasting the judge's, time with bickering back and forth, I mean, as an attorney, I can understand there are going to be people that aren't going to agree, but your probation officers can hack through that and basically say, look, this is the judge, this is, what's most likely. And, really, I mean, they can really work with the people. That's what I like about Worcester Court.
Yeah, I think, like you said, we're in a place where people are there because they don't agree. And so they're looking for the aid of the court system to help them navigate through something difficult in their lives. And we really have people that care about helping. And I think that's the most important. That's really what I've tried to focus on and bring to the court and impress on the team that we're working with, that, we're here to help change people's lives when they're working with us in the time that they're there in the court system. And I think that it's just very important to have a caring and compassionate attitude towards people that are coming in and using the judiciary.
The only thing that I would say is expand your satellite offices to incorporate more. It's great what you're doing, and you're finding the space, and you are really working with the localities to try to get some of the cases, the localized cases, Fitchburg, can be heard in Fitchburg instead of going all the way down to Worcester.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that, and I think you're doing a great job. Now, how long is the term of office for the registrar?
So it's a 6-year term. As I mentioned, I was elected in 2014, so this is my first year running for re-election. The election in 2020 on November 3rd. So we're looking forward to running this campaign. And I think back to, as you mentioned, we have been working at expanding our offices. I think that's another important piece of the work we've done in Worcester. The office is part of a court complex. So there are several different courts that sit in the Worcester courthouse, probate and family court being one. And over my time, I've realized that in speaking with attorneys and litigants across Worcester County, as I mentioned, we represent all 60 cities and towns in Worcester County, and it's a large area. It spans from the New Hampshire border all the way down to Rhode Island, Connecticut. And so it could be far to drive. Some of the towns are very rural, and we realized the need for people to have better access to the court system. And so early last year, we launched our first satellite registry. We launched out of the Gardner District Court, and then we followed quickly in a Fitchburg satellite registry out of the Fitchburg Registry of Deeds. And so we've been able to partner up with some local leaders up in northern Worcester County to bring our court system up there, the registry functions for the immediate time being, and provide people access to filing cases, receiving paperwork, looking at their cases. It was just a unique strategy that never been done in Worcester to really make sure people could access us without having to drive 45 minutes to Worcester, find parking, come into a large, which can be overwhelming building to try to talk with us. And so that's been really successful, and I do hope to expand it in the future.
Stephanie, one of the questions that I had was that when we had early voting on March 3rd, was one of the last events we had before we were, in sort of summoned with this pandemic. But we were in your office, and people were remarking about what a convenient space it was in terms of access and getting into, and it was bright, open, lovely space. And so again, going on what Andrew was saying, you're bringing these out to the people, the offices that serve the people, you're bringing them out to the people. And because you're so accessible, one of the things that you kind of puzzled me about, so please explain. You said previously it was somewhere between 24 days to 2 months after someone filed a probate, and it would take for it to get up front and be heard. Now, so where you deal with some children and families, would that kind of delay put families and children at peril of danger in an unsafe situation while paperwork was waiting on someone's desk?
Yeah, that's certainly a great point. So when I started, it was about 3 weeks for average filing time. So you filed your paperwork with us, and to have it reach the docket, it's called, to get essentially into a court case, it would take on average about 3 weeks, and we've reduced that to about 24 hours. And I think you have a very good point.
That's astounding. It's frightening.
It's time out of people's lives. It's time that, parents aren't spending with their children. It's time that attorneys are trying to explain to their clients why their paperwork's not moving forward. It's just a lot of time that was wasted, and we've been able to cut that down dramatically and make sure that we are serving people much quicker and more efficiently.
Yeah, but also not just, time wasted, yes, but putting people and children in danger because of a bureaucratic holdup or slowdown. Yeah. So thank you. I appreciate that. This is another part and parcel of what you're doing.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
So I've talked to several candidates, both on and off the program. One common thread, let's face it, kind of hard to campaign right now, especially if you're a new candidate running for public office during the COVID-19 pandemic, which requires, social distancing, no assembly. How difficult, or has it been difficult, to run as an incumbent candidate for the office of the Registrar of Probate?
I like to see it as a change. It's definitely something different. It's not what we expected. Certainly no one plans for a global pandemic. Definitely not in the middle of a campaign season, but it's certainly different. I think one thing that's as you mentioned, kind of part of being an incumbent is that I've already been elected to do a job. And so every day I show up at the court and we have a job to do. And we're finding unique, different ways to do that job. We can't have the building open to people. We can't bring in long lines like we used to. And so a lot of the time right now we're spending figuring out new solutions to these challenges. And I think that translates into a campaign. I think that, being involved in this position has brought me in connection with a lot of different people in the community. And so I've been watching a lot of different needs across the county and trying to utilize some of the connections I've built over the past couple of years to help where I can help. And I can say that to date, we've delivered about 150,000 items of PPE to different hospitals, including gloves, medical masks. We've donated capes and plastic to make capes. We've donated, just this morning, I was up in Gardner, kind of near your way, delivered 700 baked goods to a food pantry up there because we're seeing the need for people to receive these items, put grocery bags together for families that are needing these items. We are working to just support our nurses. We did a sign holdout last week in Milford for our nurses down there. And we had one of our staff members who is a beautiful painter create a wonderful sign just thanking our nurses. And we're just trying to find, oh, excellent. We're trying to find different ways to just show our support in a time when our support looks different than we thought maybe it would. You know, maybe not as many people are coming into the court building, but we know we can utilize resources and contacts and connections to help people in different ways. And I think that's very important during this time. I think as far as running a campaign, you know, I've been fortunate enough to be able to see a lot of what was happening. I think as things started to break with this pandemic in March, people were worried, people were talking about it. And, you know, we were able to get together a group of volunteers and we sent out about 50 volunteers in one day to help us collect signatures just to get on the ballot. And with that, we collected 1,500 signatures in one day. We were just paying attention and reading the writing on the wall and seeing that things were going to change and just trying to stay on top of them. And so, you know, I was able to qualify for the ballot early, which was very helpful. And I think that's how I'm looking at the months ahead, just staying on top of it, watching as things go forward, and utilizing resources to help in ways that we maybe hadn't thought of before, but in ways that are just as important.
Excellent. One question that I had was, DCF is pretty tightly connected to the probate and family court. And only recently has DCF even attempted to reach out to a lot of parents that might not have possession of their children at this point in time. What is DCF doing?
So I'm not going to speak for DCF because we aren't DCF. We do work closely with them, but I'm certainly not in any way in charge of that agency. I will say, though, we are working to try to create connections and contacts with different agencies that use the court often. So DCF is certainly one of them. They're certainly helping children and families as they navigate this pandemic. And so we are just trying to make ourselves most accessible and open and available for them. I can say that that's what we're committed to during this month, the next couple of months, is how can people reach out to me? How can they reach out to our office? And how can they find us should they have questions or need to file things? We certainly have systems in place to have emergencies filed in our court and be heard right away. We have a fantastic group of judges in Worcester, and as I'd mentioned, the staff. And so we're ready to hear cases as they're being filed with us. We're ready to help these children, help these families that are in need. We are available and accessible. And that's, I think, the most important thing that we can do on our end.
Well, one thing that you said is you don't run DCF, but I sure wish that you did. Because that is a quagmire that is needs to be fixed pretty.
Well, and also in line of DCF, that, you know, the normal reporters, the reporting routes that go into DCF that are alerting them of problems in the household, problems with children, problems with domestic issues happening. Those reporters haven't been seeing families. They haven't, because everybody's been locked in their homes. Kids aren't going to schools. They're not going to pediatricians. They're not being seen in daycare centers. So all of those normal mandatory reporting routes have been sort of halted. And I have an associate who works from DCF. And one of the things that she had said is that the average state reporting was approximately 300 reports per day through the state, in the state. And with the pandemic, it's dropped down to about 150. So do you see that you're going to get an onslaught of issues coming through once things start to loosen up and people start going back to daycare, doctors, schools? You know, I think it's a very, very fearful thought that to think that people aren't being protected.
Well, certainly, I think that we may have an onslaught, certainly, but I don't think that that's the fear. I think the fear is, how are people right now? And I think that that's the most important thing. And like I said, our goal is to just try to provide support and resources. And so I encourage anybody watching to follow along with me on Facebook. Again, Stephanie Fattman on Facebook. And I'm trying to provide as many resources as possible for these families. There are different helplines that you can call. There are different ways to get the information out there and then translated to the court system. One of the major things that we deal with in the probate and family court is restraining orders. And there are people who are at home who don't feel safe at home. And it's very important that they feel as though they have resources and can be helped. And we are still here to help them, although it might look different than how it did a couple months ago. Certainly the court system is here to help with that. And I just want to make sure people feel as though these resources are available. As I mentioned, I'm posting as often as possible on Facebook, on our website, stephaniefattman.com, to try to provide resources to people so they don't feel alone while they're at home during this.
Mm-hmm. Stephanie, we're coming down to, less than 5 minutes. What's next for the Registrar of Probate? What's next for the Registry of Probate? So you've talked about expanding. And you've done such a wonderful job in 6 years. What's next?
I think that's where we keep going. The goal is to keep expanding. Certainly, we never settle in. We never plan to come up with a settled in routine. If I'm not working hard and creating new ideas and moving things forward, then it's no longer the position for me. And I'm confident there's a lot to do in another term. I think right now we're navigating this whole new world of this COVID-19 pandemic. And what does that look like for the court system? I think that's our push towards technology. We're working on creating a virtual registry. I had heard a statistic today that in the Worcester Court Complex, we have about 15,000 people that come through that building each week. That's a large amount of people, and I just don't know that we're going back there anytime soon. And so how do we make ourselves accessible? We're working on a virtual registry, something where there's a Zoom meeting and we let people in from the waiting room, and you can come and you can chat with me on Zoom and we can answer your questions. We can send you links to paperwork. We can get you the resources you need. Where you used to do that at the front counter, now you're going to do it through technology. As I mentioned, we've launched a email address, wpfc@jud.state.ma.us. And again, you can find it on my Facebook page, Stephanie Fattman on Facebook. But through that, we're trying to answer as many questions as possible. We're trying to create new routes to file things. You used to come into the front counter and hand us paperwork and file it with us. We can't do that right now. So how does it look to do it through email or upload it to a website? It's our opportunity to expand e-filing. It's our opportunity to connect with more people in a way that we've never connected before, and that's digitally. And I think that that is really exciting. Certainly, while it's coming in unique times, it's a good push for us in a way, because it's going to allow us to create and think outside of the box and make the court all the more accessible in ways that we hadn't thought of before. And so I think that's what we're focused on for the next couple of months. And then certainly as those services settle into place and we really work out any of the kinks that might come with them, we'll expand those. We have plenty more work to do up in Northern County with expanding our satellite registries. We're going to continue to bring in different filings. I know some of the hope and the goals for the future is to have court sessions heard up in Northern County. That's certainly something that I'm pushing for in a second term. I would love to have judges expand up to Northern County as well. So there's always more work to be done. And I'm really hopeful for the second term to get that work done.
So like medicine, you're going into telelaw.
I guess so.
Quickly, Stephanie. So
yeah.
I have a lot of friends who are older attorneys that, might not navigate the internet so well, but they're used to printing out the complaint or printing out, the filings. Are they still accepting filing by mail?
Absolutely. That is how we are going to do the bulk of our business these days. Please mail things into us. We have the mailing option. That is number 1. You can e-file certain things where appropriate. That is option 2. And then email them to us. That is option 3. But we are certainly functioning with regular good old paper and mailing it into us and processing your cases that way. So I certainly advise all attorneys to do that.
And is that throughout the court system, or is it just the probate and family? Like if I file something in district court, are they accepting mailing?
I'm only going to speak for probate and family court. I'm not sure what district court is doing, but certainly resources on mass.gov to call any of the local clerks at your local court and ask them exactly how they're processing things. I think that's part of this pandemic, is just especially for attorneys, being a bit proactive in how you're going to move forward with your cases and your clients, because every court is doing things a little bit differently until we settle into what will be a new normal-ish.
Okay.
And so we're trying to find those solutions for all of our attorneys. So please reach out to me, as I mentioned, at any time. I'm available by phone, by email, on Facebook. Any way you can get to me, please do. I'm happy to answer any questions for anyone out there regarding the probate and family court, the processes we're putting in place now, and how we're moving forward in the future.
Thank you, Stephanie, for being with us tonight. I know Andrew gave you a couple of thumbs up. I don't know if you got to see them at all, but he as an attorney, he certainly approves of all you've been doing. For our viewers, if they want to know more about your campaign, how can they find out about you and your campaign?
Certainly check me out the website, stephaniefattman.com. Last name is just like how it's spelled, just like how it sounds, Fattman. Also Facebook, we're posting a lot of updates on Facebook. It's been a great way to reach out to people and have them reach out to us back, and certainly search for me there and follow along. Go ahead and like our page and see what we're up to.
Well, it's wonderful to have you back with us. It's been a long time since 2014, but that's because you've done such a good job. We hadn't any reason to bring you back and talk to you. It's been invisible for us. So thank you for joining us tonight. And to our viewers, we thank you for sitting in tonight with the Fitchburg Republican City Committee and your right to know. To us, GOP supports and holds dear your constitutional rights, your freedoms, your liberties under the U.S. Constitution. To us, GOP stands for growth, opportunity, and prosperity for all people, and we always stand for freedom. Thank you and good night.
Good night.
America, we stand for freedom. So let us all unite to yearn and strive for our republic that reflects our values, that preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and might, that reflects our values and preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and